American Airlines, something special to Europe.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. We begin tonight with the power of the White House and the 1-2 punch which has been delivered to the nation's pharmaceutical companies. Yesterday, Mrs. Clinton, who heads up the president's task force on health care reform, accused the drug companies of profiteering. Today, when she and the president went to visit a public health clinic in Arlington, Virginia, the president lectured the drug makers for what he called their shocking and unconscionable prices. Here's ABC's Britt Hume.
The president said the U.S. has one of the worst records in immunizing its children from disease in the entire Western Hemisphere. He put much of the blame on drug companies, accusing them, in effect, of price gouging on vaccines.
Over the past 10 years, while immunization rates have been declining in many important areas, the price of vaccine has risen at 6 times the rate of inflation.
The president said these prices cannot be justified by the cost of research when the drug industry, he said, is spending $1 billion a year more on advertising and lobbying than on developing new drugs.
Meanwhile, its profits are rising at 4 times the rate of the average Fortune 500 company. Compared to other countries, our prices are shocking.
In addition to this public pressure on the drug companies, the president today directed Donna Shalala, his Health and Human Services secretary, to negotiate with them to make discounted vaccines available to all states for use in clinics like this one outside Washington, which he toured today. Now only 10 states and the federal government get such discounts. He also said he will ask Congress for an immediate $300 million to establish more clinics like this one where free vaccinations are dispensed. The money would also help existing clinics stay open later and help inform people that free vaccines are available. The $300 million for this will be included, oddly enough, in the so-called job stimulus package the president will announce with his economic program next week. White House aides concede the jobs created by this will number only in the hundreds, but they think the initiative will be popular and will therefore help attract votes in Congress for the whole program. Britt Hume, ABC News, the White House.
As President Clinton noted, in the Western Hemisphere, only Bolivia and Haiti have lower vaccination rates than the U.S., which is why he wants it high on his agenda. We've put it on the American agenda tonight. As ABC's Beth Nissen reports, it is not just a matter of how much money is being spent, but where it is being spent and how.
Number 16 for immunization.
In Houston, Texas, as in most American cities, vaccines are already provided free in public health clinics to those who cannot afford them. Yet city officials estimate that only 1/3 of Houston's preschool children are adequately protected. Vaccines also have to be easier to get, and more parents need to know what shots are needed when. Parents like the mother of Angelica. She has had no shots since she was a baby. She is now 2.
Do you know when she's supposed to get shots?
I think at 5.
Before school?
Yeah, before school.
Because many parents do not have regular access to health care, they do not know children need most shots before kindergarten.
At age 6 months, they're vulnerable. At age 12, 15, 18 months, they're vulnerable to diseases that are preventable and to diseases that can not only cause them significant illnesses, but also death.
Houston has seen it happen. 4 years ago, a measles epidemic put more than 500 children in the hospital, many in intensive care. 10 of them died.
We didn't plan ahead, and we didn't effectively mobilize our immunization programs in order to prevent it.
Houston is now aggressively trying to get more children immunized earlier.
He needs shots. He's behind, okay? You want to come into our office now?
If parents do not come to them, health workers reach out to parents. On this day, they canvass mothers at a welfare office. Immunization teams also go to local drugstores to set up clinics. They give shots in churches and libraries as well. Community outreach is helping, but there is another problem: record keeping. Across the country, most immunization records are kept by hand on individual cards. They are often incomplete or lost. Houston is working on a computerized monitoring system to help ensure that each child gets the recommended 15 doses of 5 vaccines that prevent against 9 diseases. Eventually, the Clinton administration would like to expand such systems to a national immunization registry that can track children even when they move from state to state.
I don't think we can afford not to have one because the cost of outbreaks of vaccine-preventable disease, the hospitalization, the cost in life, and complications, long-term cost is astronomical.
It is a primary lesson of primary health care in the 1990s. Prevention can save not only misery, but money. Beth Nissen, ABC News, Houston.
In a moment, we'll go on to the day's other news. General Colin Powell's advice on reforming the military. Don't get carried away, he says. A judge rules in the case of two couples and the one baby they both love. And our person of the week, sticking to his guns and out of a job.
Introducing something very, very fast. It can take you from 0 to 3,500. The new Ford Citibank Visa card. You get the security of a Citibank Visa, and 5% of everything you purchase goes towards a new Ford or Lincoln or Mercury. You could earn a rebate of up to $3,500 2 years faster than any other basic auto rebate card. The new Ford Citibank Visa. Now this is a better idea.
How many times I told my dad to see a doctor. He was stubborn. But the pain in his stomach just wouldn't go away. He had to go. You should have seen the relief on his face when the doctor said Mylanta. He said it was indigestion, and his kind of indigestion needed strong medicine.
Mylanta is strong medicine, strongly recommended. In fact, Mylanta is the antacid doctors recommend most.
My doctor said Mylanta.
Also available in tablets and new gel caps.
In Washington today, a report from the nation's senior military commander on how to reduce the size of the armed forces. Change, says General Colin Powell, is inevitable and necessary. But General Powell's idea of change does not appear to go nearly as fast or as far as that of his new commander-in-chief, President Clinton. At the Pentagon for us, ABC's Bob Zelnick.
The Clinton administration and Congress have been complaining that the military has too many weapons and personnel performing the same missions. For example, why can't all the services use a single fighter like the F-16 instead of the 5 different fighters they use now? Why not designate the Marines as the nation's only quick reaction force and get rid of Army units that now play the same role? Today, Chairman Colin Powell dug in his heels against such radical surgery.
Breaking up a unique capability to put together some ad hoc capability just so I can be able to say I consolidated something. It may have a surface attractiveness, but it is fundamentally dumb.
Powell did agree to take a hard look at whether Air Force bombers could perform most of the jobs now done by the Navy's carrier-based A-6. He said pilots from all the services would now train together at a single base. And he said the Marines should not get all the heavy tanks they've been asking for, only those needed to support amphibious operations. The Army, he said, can provide most of the battlefield armor and all the long-range rockets. Powell said his decisions were governed by military need and efficiency, and denied he was spoiling for a fight with the Clinton administration, which will want more consolidation.
We're not here posturing ourselves to resist. We're trying to finish off this piece of work so we can take new guidance from our leaders and respond to that new guidance.
Nonetheless, Powell already has important differences with the administration over budget cuts, gays in the military, and the potential deployment of U.S. forces to Bosnia Herzgovina. He is determined to be a good soldier, but he does not appear a particularly happy one. Bob Zelnick, ABC News at the Pentagon.
Overseas today on the subject of war, the sounds of an ordinary day in Sarajevo. This is behind the Holiday Inn, not far from the center of town. The metal containers on the left there have been put up to protect people from Serbian snipers. It is always a gamble. In another part of town, the snipers had a clear shot of the driver of this car. He was hit in the head. It was far too dangerous to help him in the open, so they towed him to where the car would be protected. They got him into an ambulance, but he did not survive. What you have in Sarajevo and throughout Bosnia-Herzegovina now is an effort by all the ethnic groups to capture or hold as much territory as they can, as fast as they can. It has a lot to do with a peace plan developed by the United Nations negotiators Cyrus Vance and Britain's Lord Owen. They've drawn up a map dividing Bosnia into 10 separate ethnic provinces. Our reporter in Bosnia-Herzegovina, Tony Bertley, on why it is causing so much trouble.
Muslim farmers tending their crops in Jablanica, a small Bosnian town which has enjoyed racial harmony for hundreds of years. 80% of the 12,000 inhabitants are Muslim. What worries them is that, according to the Vance-Owen peace plan, the town will come under the control of Croats. Jablanica has escaped the bitter ravages of this war, but, ironically, it's the United Nations plan aimed at making peace in this area, which is likely to incite Muslims and Croats to fight against each other. The Muslims have already lost 2/3 of Bosnian territory to the Serbs, and they are not prepared to lose more land to the Croats. In Jablanica, both sides have their own army units in a relationship which is becoming increasingly strained, and the Muslims fear that outside Croat forces are about to launch an attack. He says our troops fought on the front lines with the Croats against the Serbs, and now a lot of our weapons we gave to the Croats may be used against us. The people of Jablanica fear that what happened down the road in the town of Prozor may happen to them. Many Muslims have fled Prozor because their homes were burned by Croats in a new wave of ethnic cleansing. This woman says she is living in fear. Her home is regularly shot at, and soldiers have told her to leave because they say Prozor is Croat land.
They're worse than the Serbs. The Serbs shelled us, but we hid in the basement. These people are our neighbors, and you never know when they are going to come for you.
Scores of Muslim homes in Prozor have been destroyed. This Croatian military policeman says the damage was caused by the Muslims burning candles. Thousands of refugees have fled to Jablanica from Prozor and the surrounding area. If the battle starts here, they'll have to flee once more. Tony Bertley, ABC News, Jablanica, Bosnia.
Just one more note on the terror in Bosnia. 2 Bosnian Muslim women who say they were raped by Serbian soldiers are suing the leader of the Bosnian Serbs, Radovan Karadzic, here in a U.S. federal court. They say Karadzic is legally responsible for the mass rapes and the other brutalities inflicted by Serbian forces, and they claim that U.S. law permits suits for human rights abuses committed in other countries. Well, here in New York today, the man who hijacked that Lufthansa plane has been formally charged with air piracy. A sentence of 20 years to life faces him. The hijacker is now said to be Ethiopian, not Somali. His gun was a starter's pistol that only fired blanks. The German government has ordered a review of security procedures at the Frankfurt airport to see how he managed to get the pistol on board. When we come back, a 2-year-old girl and the 2 sets of parents who insist she is theirs.
Mary Brody won't feel the tiny lump in her breast for another 2 years, but it'll be discovered tomorrow after her first mammogram, thanks in part to an X-ray film created by DuPont. And for Mary Brody, early detection means a 2-year head start on the rest of her life. At DuPont, we make the things that make a difference. Better things for better living.
State finals coming up. A lot of pressure to win. I don't eat right, I get irregular, so I don't project a winning attitude, and the boys see that. I tried some natural bulk fiber, but I couldn't take all that grit. Then I discovered Sunrise Smooth Metamucil. No grit in the mix or the taste. Easy to get the extra fiber I need every day to stay regular. You got a winning attitude, you win, if you're lucky.
Metamucil, and you could stay regular for the rest of your life.
This is our latest concept car. Of course, before we could sell it to the general public, we'd have to tone down its 214 horsepower engine and replace its specially tuned performance suspension. So when do we plan on making these changes? We don't. Introducing Eagle Vision TSI, definitely not intended for the general public.
In Michigan today, 2 couples and a baby. Unlike the movies, this is not a comedy. It was last September when we first reported on the legal struggle between 2 sets of parents in 2 states, each claiming that a little girl was rightfully theirs. A judge has now ruled. Here's ABC's John McKenzie.
The little girl is now 2 years old, and so too is this bitter custody battle. On one side, the Michigan couple with whom she's lived all her life and who want to adopt her. On the other, the Iowa couple, her biological parents trying to get her back. Today, a Michigan judge ruled the child would have a more stable upbringing with the couple who have raised her, Jan and Roberta de Boer. The judge said uprooting her from the couple would be too traumatic for the child.
For the best interest of this child, the court should award custody to, at this time, to Mr. and Mrs. DeBoer.
This is not a custody issue. This is about children and how they should be able to have rights.
But in Iowa, where the child was born, the courts have already sided with the biological parents, noting that before they were married and without his consent, Mrs. Schmidt put the child up for adoption. That within days, Mr. Schmidt learned that he had a daughter and has fought ever since to get her back. Today, Schmidt said he plans to keep on fighting through the Michigan courts, even though the judge warned him today it would only make it more difficult on his daughter.
No judge can take a family away and make another family.
Right, it's wrong to destroy one family to create the illusion of another. We will always be her family.
2 states, 2 sets of parents continue to battle over where one little girl belongs. John McKenzie, ABC News.
In economic news today, still no sign that inflation is picking up. Wholesale prices rose just 0.2% in January. On Wall Street, stocks gave up some of last week's big gains. The Dow Jones Industrials lost about 30 points today to close at 33.92. The trading was heavy. For the week, stocks lost more than 49 points. By the way, we don't wish to take the romance out of Valentine's Day, which is on Sunday, but we thought you would like to know that kissing fights tooth decay. The Academy of General Dentistry says when you anticipate a kiss, your mouth waters, which is saliva to a dentist, which washes away the debris and acids, including chocolate, we assume, that would otherwise attack the enamel on your teeth. The kiss itself, the dentists say, produces even more saliva. Happy Valentine's Day. We'll be right back.
Irritated eyes can say things about you that aren't true. People can think your red eyes look worn out, upset, stressed out, even if you're not. Don't let red eyes send the wrong message about you. Get the red out with Visine, the eye drop recommended by more eye doctors. Visine Extra cools, soothes, and moisturizes red, irritated eyes. Use Visine Extra and look as refreshed and confident as you can. Get the red out. Look your best.
Hey, if you thought a dollar didn't go far these days, check out the huge Ace Dollar Day sale.
Glue and gloves.
Bags.
And bulbs. Cords and coffee filters.
And more for just $1
each.
It goes to show you, Ace is America's place for better value. Hey, there's still more room back there.
They ate the same things, got the same heartburn, but his antacid is very different. His Tums has calcium. Most antacids don't. Original Rolaids uses an aluminum salt. This uses aluminum and magnesium. So does this. Of all these, only Tums helps wipe out heartburn and gives you calcium you need every day.
Something my body needs anyway. I like that.
Calcium-rich Tums. That's the one you want.
Do you think low fat means no taste? Here's good news.
Get a taste of what the best can do.
Introducing reduced fat Hellmann's. Only 1/3 the fat, no cholesterol, and a taste only Hellmann's could bring you.
Hard to believe, but it's all true. Get a taste of what the best can do.
Now, cutting down on fat tastes delicious.
Bring out the Hellmann's and bring out the best.
New reduced fat Hellmann's.
In Washington today, a visit from the heir to the British throne, Prince Charles, his first major overseas trip since separating from his wife, the Princess of Wales. In Britain, as almost everywhere else, there is something of an obsession with the Charles and Di story and all of the problems in the royal family. The question is, will it be a passing fancy? Here's ABC's Jim Laurie.
Prince Charles visits America at a time when he may feel being away from Britain is a good thing. This weekend, British television airs a controversial American-produced dramatization of the breakup of his marriage to Princess Diana, based on a best-selling book by Andrew Morton. It airs on satellite TV after having been rejected by the major British networks. And it paints an unflattering portrait of the prince, callous even when his wife was expecting their first child.
Diana, the baby!
Since the announcement of their separation last December, Charles has had a rough time. First an Australian magazine, and then the British press published transcripts of a highly intimate phone call, allegedly between the Prince of Wales and Camilla Parker Bowles, the married woman rumored to be his longtime lover. An allegation treated as fact in the current film.
Do you love me?
I'm surprised he didn't know that by now.
Opinion polls here suggest while the popularity of Princess Diana remains high, that of Charles has plummeted.
I mean, everyone's human, but you know, he's in the public eye. Should have been more careful or abstained.
The regard and the respect which we all had for him is gone, and I would be very dubious now about him being a monarch.
Disenchantment with Charles has prompted calls for the monarchy to be reformed. Despite an offer by the Queen to pay tax on her personal income, some members of Parliament demand more change, including an end to perks like the royal yacht and some of the Queen's palaces. Few here advocate the abolition of the monarchy, but rather reform, and perhaps for Prince Charles to step aside and let his older son assume the throne. But with a still popular Queen in good health, it may be many years before a King Charles need be considered. And by then, royal supporters hope the Camilla transcripts and the American-made TV drama will be only distant, bad memories. Jim Laurie, ABC News, London.
We'll be back in just a moment.
World News Tonight with Peter Jennings and the Person of the Week are brought to you by Cotton Incorporated.
With trusting eyes, the children show minds open, hearts true. Our spirits grow. The touch, the feel, the fabric of our lives. The touch, the feel of cotton, the fabric of our lives.
Paul, you shoveled the driveway already? Oh, your back's hurting again? You need Motrin IB. Works great for backaches. You take the Motrin, I'll finish the driveway.
Motrin IB, the relief of Motrin in non-prescription strength.
When Ford refined the full-sized car, we made its shape more aerodynamic, its V8 engine more powerful, and yet more efficient. We also added to its comfort and even its safety with available anti-lock brakes and dual airbags. But through it all, one thing about the Ford Crown Victoria has remained the same. It's still as quiet as a Rolls-Royce.
Have you driven a Ford lately? When I get gas, I may look like this, but I feel like this, painfully bloated with gas.
GasX has the power to relieve gas faster than antacids.
So I feel like me again.
Painful gas needs the power of GasX.
Will your marriage last? Find out tonight. This doctor says he can predict whether or not you'll stay together.
What we're able to do with all this equipment is to see the early warning signs.
2020, tonight.
Finally, this evening, our Person of the Week. We cannot think of a prior occasion on which we have chosen someone who has just been fired. But that is the case this week. A couple of years ago, we saw a headline which said, "This man could make it anywhere." But making the schools better in New York turned out to be more than he bargained for.
Reform means changing the status quo, and anytime you change something, anytime you intrude on somebody's turf, then you start building up some, obviously, detractors that don't buy into what you're doing. And the most entrenched bureaucrats are people in my field.
In the nation's largest education bureaucracy, there is no one person more controversial than New York School's Chancellor, Joseph Fernandez.
I think, Mr. Fernandez, that you forget you are working for the board. They are not working for you.
When the city school board voted to fire Fernandez this week, the meeting itself was a demonstration of how polarized parents and educators can be when it comes to dealing with social issues in the public schools. For example, AIDS education, handing out condoms in the schools, and what Mr. Fernandez called the rainbow curriculum, which included teaching first and second grade children tolerance for gays and lesbians. School board member Michael Petridis led the opposition to the chancellor.
If we were going to tackle issues that were to be controversial, well then let's let those issues be issues around student achievement and how we can improve the public school system. He got into a number of socially driven issues, as you're well aware, and lost the agenda and began to lose the confidence, and there was a certain arrogance.
I contend that we have to take more and more things on in today's schools. Today's schools are not like they were 20, 25 years ago. We have to deal with bias and intolerance, AIDS. We have to deal with children that don't come from the traditional family of two parents, plus violence. It's different from the 50s and the 40s, you know, where chewing gum or talking out of turn was the big problem. We're dealing with some real serious issues now.
Joseph Fernandez was born in New York City. His family was poor, and the temptations of the inner city were great. Fernandez admits to using heroin as a teenager. He dropped out of high school and joined the Air Force. At some point, he managed to turn his life around, finally get his high school diploma, and eventually his doctorate in education. Fernandez rose to prominence as an educator when he ran the school system in Miami. He was so successful there that New York City courted him vigorously, and he came to New York in 1990. He believes his downfall is in part because he was not political.
In fact, it's funny, one of the legislators or local legislators that was opposed to me said that she's been in office a year and I never bothered to call her. Well, why would I have to call her? I mean, about what? Does she want jobs for somebody or what? That's not how I operate.
Fernandez says school chancellors are arrogant by nature.
Look, I'm what I am. I think that most people that have worked with me will tell you that I'm impatient. And I think that's a good characteristic. I don't think it's a bad one. I don't think we can afford to lose another generation of kids.
When he took over 3 years ago, New York cut its school budget by $750 million. Fernandez had to find savings without hurting education. He says he was particularly proud of cutting the bureaucracy by 30%, while math and science test scores rose and the dropout rate at least leveled off.
Look, it's not to say everything we've done is perfect. We know it's not perfect, but we have made a difference in this system.
Fernandez is very proud of his condom distribution program and the rainbow curriculum, which ultimately brought him down.
I was trying to save lives. I was trying to teach children about intolerance. It's important to do it in the early grades. And someday, people in this country will wake up and realize that we all have to live together. It's a very small planet.
Joe Fernandez will be the chancellor until June. He may have lost his job, but he says his principles are very much intact.
I can look at myself in the mirror every morning and know that I try to do the best thing for the kids here in New York City. And overwhelmingly, the majority of the people out there feel that way too.
And so we choose Joseph Fernandez, who has certainly helped us to understand better what a challenge improving education and understanding really are, which is why he makes a difference. That's our report on World News Tonight. I'm Peter Jennings. 2020 later. Have a good weekend. We'll see you Monday. Good night.